Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Continental Aspire Soccer TV. And this week we're actually speaking to Thomas Gronnemark, world-renowned throw-in coach. We're going to talk about a lot of interesting stuff. Going to obviously talk a lot about his background. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
Thomas, just want to go back. Obviously, your story is quite interesting. I want to kind of give you an example. If we were in high school together, who is Thomas? Give us a little bit about. If we meet in high school together, what sort of a person were you growing up in high school?
Yeah, I was kind of a young guy who always had ideas and always had different solutions to the challenges. And I was actually, I won't say necessarily struggling, but you know, it was a little boring for me just to read in a book and then just tell what stood in this book in the next day after in class. So every time I met a challenge or there was a question, I found like crazy solutions. And sometimes it went brilliant, and sometimes I was thought of as unserious. So you can say that's been my whole life, you know. Every time I go through a day, you know, I have like thousands of solutions to everything. And of course, a lot of this creativity and imagination, I've put that into my job as a soccer throwing coach. So, but you know, I'm having so many ideas, writing songs every day, finding solutions, doing crazy stuff. So that's the kind of a high school boy I would be.
Right. Okay. So we would kind of get along well because I didn't like sitting in the classroom either. So that's definitely for sure. Give us kind of in terms of if you're kind of looking. I mean, I'm just going to kind of go through some of like your background, just to give people a little bit more background on yourself. So obviously you've went very deep into the footballing community, Thomas. So obviously you've had. Obviously, in terms of working through, so you were born in Denmark in 1975. So you've been you've been a sprinter for your country, is that right?
Yeah, that's totally right. I've been running 100, 200, 400 meters, and then relays to several-time Danish champions and also European champion in the club relay in Paris in 2000. And yeah, before that, I played a lot of soccer too. So been doing a lot of different stuff.
And then also, so you were a brakeman and driver on the bobsleigh team between 2002 2006. Almost made it to the Olympics, but the team was not selected. And then, for example, you started motivational speaking in 2005, broke a world record for the longest throw in 51 meters, has since been broken, reported. And then also, obviously, having spent time at one of the biggest teams in Denmark, FC Midtjylland in 2005. So take us kind of back through kind of this part of your background from the sprinting and where you went from sprinting, because I know in Scandinavia a lot of these sports are really a really big deal, like bobsleighing. And whenever I've looked at bobsleighing, I really think it's a very I think you've almost got to be a psychopath to be in bobsleighing, because it's so dangerous, isn't it? Yeah, it looks dangerous. So take us kind of through kind of the running and how you kind of transitioned and what made your interest in running and bobsleighing.
Yeah, first of all, I played soccer until I was a U19 player. I played in the highest U19 league, also played against really good players like Thomas Gravesen, who later played for Real Madrid and Celtic. And so then in the mid-90s, I went to athletics because I was really fast and I had a long throw-in in soccer. So success already the first year I was running. I came on the Danish national team. I had this 6-year period, and yeah, several-time Danish champions, European champion, 4x400 meter relay for club teams in Paris in year 2000. In 2002, I've never been better, but I've moved to the western part of Denmark because I met my wife. And yeah, so I thought I had to find a new sport, and then I saw there was a bobsleigh team in Denmark, and in one way you're right that winter sports is big in Scandinavia, but this was actually the first bobsleigh team in Denmark ever, so we had to start from scratch. So I had fantastic 4 years there, 2002 to 2006. There was 30 sledges qualified for the Olympics in 2006. And we with Denmark were like in the middle of the World Cup field there with placements like 15, 17 likes. So we would, easy qualified for the Olympics. But at that time in 2006, the Danish Olympic Committee wanted us to win a medal at that time. That was crazy. So wow. we had to make 2 times top 9, and that was totally crazy because small winter country, no bobsleigh team before. So in all other years than 2006, we've been at the Olympics there. So, but it learned me a lot, and it was actually in the middle of that bobsleigh period in 2004 where I thought, hey, if I can make a good soccer throw in myself, can't I teach other players to do it? So went down to my local library after a bobsleigh trip and tried to find a book about throw-ins, but there were no books at all. So I used 6 months to make my own throwing course, videotape myself, video analyze myself. And then in the fall 2004, I had a throwing course. To be honest, I didn't know if it would work because I've only tried it on myself. And I could have been started with a youth or amateur soccer team, but I had the courage to ask a local Super League team, that's the best league in Denmark, Viborg. They said yes, and they scored a lot of goals after throw-in. Situation improved a lot. And the year after, it was FC Midtjylland, one of the absolute best teams in Denmark. And since then, it's just gone wild. And of course, in 2018, where Jurgen Klopp from Liverpool FC called me directly to ask about help, that has meant that it has all totally exploded. So now the last 3 seasons I've been coaching like 6, 8, 10 different professional teams all around the world. I'm a freelance throwing coach, so I'm also helping teams outside Europe.
Right. Okay. And so if we kind of just go back, so I really like, so see, when you've kind of looked at sport, Thomas, so if you look at you'd obviously played football, that was kind of what you'd kind of learned from a very young age. So going from, because usually you always find people are going from sprinting to football. It's usually the other way around. It's kind of what I've kind of seen. What was it that made you, when you were going up and you're playing against really good players like Thomas Gravesen, who I think he went to Chelsea, he had a very good career in England, didn't he, Thomas Gravesen? So literally, whenever you look at players like this, what was it that when you knew football wasn't going to be your future as a player? What would take us through that journey and what made you change and go towards sprinting? Take us through your mindset and what was going on at that particular time.
I'll say that in the 1980s and early 1990s, where I played soccer, there wasn't really individual coaching. There was no real of course we had a coach. It was high youth level, but it's not like now. So I think that there could actually been a really good chance of me being a professional soccer player if I played now, because I also had the wrong place on the pitch. I should perhaps have been a fullback instead of me playing on top there. I was running late in athletics 10.4. And with that speed, I'll be faster than anyone, in soccer now, also internationally. I had my plus 40 meter throw in last post in the air, and I had actually a decent technique. So I think that my biggest challenge was that the quality of the training I had from coaches, but also did myself, wasn't good enough. But no matter what, you can say that in the mid-90s, I realized I couldn't be a professional soccer player. So I thought, hey, what are my strengths? And that's one of the piece of advice I give to all people. Look at your past and see what strengths do you have? What experience can you bring on to the next part of your life? And I found out, hey, I was fast. Why not try it? And even though we didn't really have an athletics club in my hometown, there were only 2 people running on a dirt track. So I tried it anyway. And yes, I was really good. And soon after I was competing for one and training in one of the biggest athletics and track and field club in clubs in Denmark. So my piece of advice is that take your strengths, take your experience, bring it on to your life now, but also in your future. And it was actually the same story. In 2002, I've never been better, set personal records on 100 and 200 meters, but I was training alone in a small town because I met my wife that moved far away. So I want to go back to that team sport again. And what could I do here? Yeah, I was fast, I was strong, I was heavy. It's all three things. It's really important in bobsleighing. And yes, as you mentioned before, you have to be crazy to sit in a bobsleigh because you're driving like
right.
30, 150 kilometers per hour. You're crashing sometimes. But I thought, hey, let's just try it. Even though I was afraid of roller coasters, I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is like a roller coaster, isn't it?
yeah, just 100 times wilder. A lot of people, it's just like a roller coaster. I've been meeting a lot of big men with really big muscles, also big mouths, who said after the first ride, I'll never go in that sled again. So I'm not a tough guy, not at all, but it's more like mentality. How can you cope with all the challenges you're having, not only to sit in it, to prepare, but also after a crash? It's like a traffic, what do you say, accident. Just it doesn't take 3 seconds, it takes like a minute sometimes to crash. So I've been saying these things, and then before I was a throwing coach, I took my experience from soccer, took my physical experience from athletics. I took the video analysis from bobsleigh, but we were also very innovative. So all these things I like put in together in my job as a soccer throwing coach, and that's just developed through time because my creativity, imagination, and ability to analyze things.
So, Thomas, do you share when you're coaching at a lot of Europe's elite clubs? Do you kind of take the perspective that, would you say, from doing bobsleighing to running, because obviously running's still very mentally challenging, because obviously you're going into different environments, you're competing at different levels, you've obviously got recovery. You know what I mean, and then it's on to like your next race. You're trying to progress towards Olympics and things like that. And what would you say in terms of bobsleighing? Do you think that's because that sport, being as challenging it is? Tell us about the mental, the physical and the mental side of what it takes to be really good, to get good at that. Because obviously I think it's very impressive to be a driver, and obviously you guys weren't selected, but to say you'd never done something and then you went and done something for like 4 years, that must have took a lot of mental strength to go from something you'd never done before.
Yeah, I'll just say I was not the driver, I was the brake man. So I was the second or the fourth man, depending on if it was for the 2 or 4 man sled. But no matter what, it was really, really demanding to do that sport. One of the most demanding things is the fear of crashing. When you haven't crashed before, you'll crash at some time. And you also know that there's a big risk that you'll end up in the hospital. A few people are, of course, not so often, but sometimes people die too. So it's that fear.
Did you ever see that? Did you ever see anybody die when you were doing it? Did you see deaths and stuff?
No, but I heard about it also. Also a good friend from Germany. We had a cooperation with the German bobsleigh federation, and one of the female brake women, she became a pilot, and she crashed and died. So of course, it's not often it happens, but you can be sure as a bobsleigh athlete that you'll crash, and you can also be pretty sure that you'll be injured. So you have to cope with that. So one thing is, before you've tried it, you can do it 2 ways. There are some people who can just say, I don't care, they block everything out. But I think most people have to make their own mental tools. So the way I did it, because I'm not especially tough, the way I did it was to say, what am I going to do when we are crashing? And then I decided how I would try to react mentally. Right. And then that gave me some kind. It made me secure, at least more secure than if I didn't do it. And then when I crashed, I thought that was totally crazy, but it was actually okay. And the challenge with crashing and mentality in bobsleighing is that you have to push 100% in the start. If you can only push 97% because you're afraid, you'll never be a good bobsleigh athlete. So that's one thing. The other thing is the workload. You say, now I'm in the soccer world, and compared to bobsleighers, soccer players are training, I don't know, only perhaps, I don't know, 25% of what bobsleighers are doing.
Right.
We were training 2 times a day, and when you're training bobsleigh, it's not only 1.5 hours because you have to prepare the sled, you have to bring it up to the track, you have to carry it, you have to the other way around. And then that was like before noon, afternoon, the same again, bobsleigh driving or weight training or sprint training. That's important too. And then in the evening, you're normally polishing your runners or repairing the sled. So, and it's not like staff who's doing this, you have to do it yourself. So normally you have a work day on 12, 14, 16 hours. And if you're coming from again, soccer like me or athletics, even though I train harder in athletics than soccer, it's a whole nother world. So the mental workload, together with that mental pressure too, that's really hard. So, and then you'll also say that as a Danish bobsleigh athlete, I didn't earn any money. I was like, when I was only home half the year in Denmark because we were traveling all the time, and I had a 20-hour day job because I couldn't do any more because of all the training. So my wife paid for a lot of the 4 years. So yes, if you're a bobsleigh driver or athlete in Germany, you're like hired by the army or the police. So that's another thing. But in Denmark, we didn't earn any money at all. So that was also a thing, because you can say, okay, are you earning $100,000 or £100,000 or so euros per year? Then you can say, okay, I can cope with that. So I think it took a lot of things, but what it gave me was, like, first of all, 4 fantastic years together with a whole team, 7, 8 guys, plus the trainers and 20 weeks per year. And then you're also training together when you're at home. And, that's a lot of these things I've been bringing into to my job as a throwing coach. But I'm also telling about that, for example, when I'm doing my talks. I've been doing over 500 talks for companies. So these experiences from athletics, bobsleighing, as a throwing coach, as a world record holder in throw-ins, and try to bring it on to people, like I'm doing in here too. So
yeah, no, absolutely, no. I think it's remarkable. So would you say, in terms of whenever you're kind of looking at things, and you're kind of looking in terms of as you're looking. Because I suppose going into football is completely different. The environment's quite different, compared to, I know you would have been to as a player in Denmark, you would have had like Peter Schmeichel, and obviously Denmark, winning Euro 1992, you know what I mean? That was a big achievement for Denmark, beating Germany in the final. But what would you say that also is where football in Denmark was really, the level was starting to rise considerably?
No, not really. I think we have to start in 1984 when the Euros. That was like the first time where a national team from Denmark was really good. We did really well in the World Championships in '86 too in Mexico, and of course, yes, we won the Euros in '92. But that's these championships were more like a fairy tale, because what a lot of people don't know is that Denmark wasn't even qualified for the Euros in '92. All the players were sitting in foreign countries at the swimming pool with a big drink in their hands because we hadn't qualified. But then because of the former Yugoslavia, they were like banned because of the war down there. All the players were called in, but you have to know that the players didn't have a 3-4 week training camp. They were called in directly from vacation, so that makes it even bigger. So even though, of course, in Denmark, we are really proud of the '92 team, but it was more like I don't know, a 3-week fairy tale there. So, but I think
Right.
since then we have done really well. We qualified not for every, but actually I think most of the big international championships, Europeans and World Cup. So, and we're doing pretty well. We have to remember that we are not even 6 million inhabitants in Denmark.
Yep.
So I think we're doing quite well. So we can expect to be as good as England, Italy, Spain, France, Germany, big countries, also soccer countries like this. But we have to compete with like Sweden, Poland, Norway, teams like, countries like this who are the same size. So all in all, I think, I think it's the national sport here in Denmark, football. So people pretty much talk about it no matter where you go.
And I know from speaking to people in Denmark, I was speaking to a guy, and he was telling me in Denmark, especially, there is very few of the academy directors, for example, are full time. Most of them are part time. They're not full time. So that, and I know one of the guys I spoke to, and he became one of the first academy directors, I think, in Denmark. You know what I mean? So I think that's definitely interesting. Thomas, I know you've had obviously, in terms of, you've obviously had lots of images and videos made about you, right? But they all focus completely on your work in football. You know what I mean? They don't seem to see the other side of you. Like, and the thing that I find most interesting is the thing that prepared you for where you are now. And I always believe that it's important to see where somebody's been to know where they're going. And I think that that's really interesting. You know what I mean? When I look at how a person's wired, how they think, and how they process issues and things like that, and go to the next level. So when you look at that, right? When you're thinking about football and where football kind of is and where football is now, and why do you think people just focus on your work in football, but they don't see the other things you've achieved? Why do you think that's never recognized?
I think first of all, I think it's pretty recognized. I think it's more like people in general have so many questions around my throwing coaching. There are so many things to talk about: long, fast, and clever throwing philosophy, time in Liverpool, time in Ajax, Midtjylland, my world record. So it's more about, I think, that people have so many questions that they don't have enough time to.
Yeah.
Almost every time people ask about it, my background, but it's more like, just to scratch the surface of it. So I'm really happy that you're asking a lot here, and I'll also say that when I'm talking about motivation, about innovation, worked also for companies.
Right.
I've done a lot, a lot of these things you're asking about here, that's like the subject when I'm talking with companies, even though I'm also talking about soccer throw-ins and how I came there, how I'm working with the teams. So, but I think, you have to bring all in a personality and in a journey to understand everything. So I really appreciate that you're asking me about it here.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think it's very inspiring for a start. I think your journey is like it's incredible. So if you think about, so if you look at, like, for example, where does football rank in terms of in sports that are played in Denmark for a lot of our audience, because they're not going to know. I think in Scandinavia it's very different. Obviously, you've got a lot of winter sports, so I'm sure it's quite competitive.
I'll say it's actually, if you're saying Scandinavian winter sports, it's actually more Norway, Sweden, and Finland, because we don't have so much ice and snow in Denmark compared to these countries. So especially Norway and Sweden, they're really good at winter sports. Not so much in Denmark. It's more like the climate, even though we're in Scandinavia. So first of all, as I mentioned before, football is the main sport, but we also have handball. And it's not all the listeners who know what handball is, but it's a game like you played 7 versus 7, small pitch, only played with your hands. And actually, Denmark was just like world champions here a couple of weeks ago. They were world champions the last 2 times for men. They won the last Olympics. So that's actually also a big sport in Denmark. Sports like football, handball, also badminton, if you know that, that's also really big in Denmark. So I think that like many other smaller countries, we are good at some things, but not everything. If you look at England or again Germany, France, they're almost like top level in every sport or the States, because they have so many people and who are doing sports. So
Right.
I think that we are okay in football, but I think that the level can still be better. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm traveling to many different countries, and sometimes I actually see lower leagues, because I'm not only coaching in the best league. Sometimes I'm also coaching in the second and third leagues, and what I see sometimes in second and third league, for example, in Germany, that can sometimes be better than the best league in Denmark. So I think you have to invest to be better. You have to be innovative, but then it's also important for me to say that we are just under 6 million people in Denmark, and of course you have a fewer people to pay. To the clubs, if you can say like this. So it's also about economy. And let's just say, I can't remember, let's just take the States over there. If it's like 30 MLS teams or so, and that's like 10 million people per MLS team. So of course they can generate more money and better sponsors and so and everything. So you also have to look at development and economy. You have to look at the size of the population to see why is it developing like it is. So, but all in all, I'm happy to be in Denmark, but I'm also really inspired by traveling to all countries. I'm taking a lot with me every time I travel. So yeah.
So when you see kind of all of these things kind of happening and stuff, and obviously from seeing the football, because I know handball, that's very popular in Eastern Europe. I've met a few people from Eastern Europe, and that's like the thing there. Like Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia especially, it's very popular there, for sure, as well as basketball and other sports. So you've obviously you've bobsleighed and sprinted for your country. So you later go into football, but before we kind of hit on that, who was your main inspiration growing up, Thomas? Who was kind of, did you get a role model kind of growing up, but like your parents? What would you say was your biggest role model, would you say?
I'll say when I was a kid, like these 18 years old, I had my big cousins. I had actually my 4 big cousins who were brothers, so they played football too, and 2 of them had really good long throw-ins. So that was also one of the reasons why I took on like rehearsing long throw-ins myself and throw-ins in general. So like if I have to say someone, it has to be my big cousins. Of course, I was like many Danish football players. I was inspired like a guy like Michael Laudrup, who played both for Real Madrid and Barcelona, one of the best and most elegant players ever, in my opinion. So that was like.
Did you ever get to meet them? Did you ever get to meet and talk with them?
No, not really. So that was okay for me, because sometimes it's also the imagination around who are they, what are they like. So for me, that's enough. I've never been like traveling to get an autograph or meet them, but they were really inspiring. But it was more like people in my hometown, my cousins, but also the best players in my local town, even though they only played like second or third league, they weren't even playing the best league. So for me, it was like more local inspiration that meant a lot to me. So
so that was a real motivating factor for you. It was just having somebody in your family, somebody you could really look up to. It was a good role model and could really lead by example.
Yeah, it's really important, and I also do that a lot myself, meeting kids, meeting young people. I always take my time to talk with them because I know what it's meaning. I've also been working 14 years myself with kids and young people as an educated person. So So I know the importance of talking. So sometimes I'm also like doing videos for people if they ask me, also if they're living in another country or so, because I know even 2 minutes of my time, also when I'm traveling, it can mean the difference in a whole life. So sometimes people forget that even 10 seconds, it means a lot for people. And I'm not only talking about kids and young people, but let's just say when I'm traveling and training, sometimes I'm also like on the pitch talking to security people or people I meet on the street, and because I know how important it can be for them, but also how important it can be for myself, because I'm always trying to learn, and of course it's totally cool to learn from people like Jurgen Klopp from Liverpool or Erik ten Hag from Ajax and everything. But it might as well be a security man on the pitch who's saying, hey, couldn't you use these yellow cones instead for this? And then I'm saying, hey, what do you mean? Oh, this and this and this. Hey, I haven't thought about that. So I try to get inspiration from not only different areas in life, but also many different persons. And we don't have to count out people no matter who they are, no matter if they don't understand the sport, if they're young, if they're old, if they're, have a different religion, different sex, So I try to take all in. And of course, it's also sometimes hard for the brain to be that open-minded, and of course, again, you have to sometimes concentrate and work to develop things. But all in all, I always try to say to people, be open-minded. You never know where you'll get your inspiration, and always be sure you're inspiring people you're meeting.
Absolutely. I'm totally in line with that message. Absolutely. So obviously, whenever you're kind of looking, in terms of, so obviously you've bobsleighed for your country. So do you still take part in older sports that you used to do? Do you still doing the running and things like that? Is that still at the forefront of your mind?
Yeah. I'm still watching. I'm still watching a lot of athletics, track and field. There, I love to watch that. I'm also actually this morning I did some intervals, like 230 meters intervals. Sometimes it get a little bit hard for my muscles, but that's just the way it is. But I'm also like doing a lot of other sports. I haven't mentioned that earlier, but I've been playing street basketball my whole life, and also in a club just for 1 year.
Okay.
Playing street basketball, and I'm using a lot of this knowledge from basketball in my throwing coaching too. So I try to be on top of everything. And sometimes you also know that I'm also participating in the throwing drills myself. If we miss, so if we have to play 4 against 4 with a thrower, we only 8 people, I jump into. Of course, if it's Liverpool FC, I give the players a chance. I don't want to take the confidence away from them, but I'm still participating, and I think that. Of course, it's okay just to, have the things in your mind and try to do it on paper. But I also try to do it myself with my own body, because then it's easiest to show to the players too. And so if you can do it yourself, it also you're also leading by example to the players too. So I try to be as involved as possible. So yeah.
And so whenever you're looking at that, I know you just mentioned basketball there. Would you say, when you look at because a lot of American sports, the influence is like you look at American football. And as a matter of fact, I actually got to meet Tom Brady, the former New England Patriots quarterback. And I met him, and he was explaining to me, in terms, he was describing to me how he throws a ball, and how he understands in terms of putting it in a space between, so if there's like a safety coming over the top, you know what I mean? He understands kind of, but he also said basketball actually helped him become a very good quarterback. So I think those hand sports, and if Stevie Nichol's listening to this, these are things that do help you. And it is a critical part of the game, 100%. So one of the things I would say, Thomas, so if you're looking, a part of the data focused mind of thinking, so in terms of how is data Where do you think the place is for that? Because I know you say you do a lot of analysis. What would you say, Thomas, is the future of data in terms of thinking? How is it going to improve? How is it going to improve the professional game? Do you think?
I think first of all, I'm really saying welcome to data, and I think that is also one of the reasons why my throwing coaching is recognized now as making a big difference, because if we didn't have data, it would be really difficult to measure.
Right.
The data has measured that before I came to Liverpool FC, they were only number 18 out of 20 in the Premier League, third last on throw-ins under pressure where the players are marked, with a possession on 45.4%. In my first season, we improved to 68.4% and went from number 18 to number 1 in the Premier League. You couldn't measure that without data. So I think data is a really, really good thing. But I also think you also have to like look at data, because even though there's a lot of great data out there, there's also a lot of bad data out there. And I think sometimes it's a little bit like, okay, if you have a fantastic picture of some numbers and a graph, then it's the truth. I see really much bad data out there where they're either wrong or they're measuring the wrong things. And let's just go over to throw-ins. I sometimes see people who are measuring, for example, all the throw-ins and then saying like possession there. But that's like, sorry, really stupid, because,
right.
if you're a team who has really much possession and then the opponents are like going just totally down in front of their own penalty area, then you'll have a lot of throw-ins not under pressure. And doesn't matter there, because the opponents are 30 meters away. You have no pressure. It doesn't make a difference. So if you measure that and say, this and this and this is the ranking, then for me it's really stupid. And another thing is that I've heard some people say that, okay, there are bigger chance of keeping the ball if you're throwing the ball backwards at a throw-in situation. So therefore, it's best to throw it backwards. No, that was really like, sorry. And that's just the most simple thing, because it's the same with a normal pass. Of course, you get less possession if you throw it forward and compared to backwards. But of course, it's about doing it the right way, and it's about knowing how you can throw it forward so it's dangerous, or how you can throw it forward to keep possession. So a lot of for me, data is bad. So it's not only my wish, because I think it'll be through, but I hope that, again, it's important for me to say a lot of good data out there, but there's also a lot of bad data. So I hope that the quality of the data will improve. And right now, one of the reasons why data and throw-ins are sometimes poor is because also the analysis people and the data people, they lack knowledge around throw-ins. So when I'm publishing my book about throw-ins, it'll be much easier to make good data. But right now, so many coaches, managers, analysis people, high performance analysis people, they don't have the right knowledge around throwing. But again, of course, right now I'm keeping it until I'm publishing my book and doing my courses. Because right now I'm in a good place where the big teams want to hire me, and then sometimes I'll share my secrets.
Yeah, and so kind of whenever you're kind of looking at that, so if we touched on it, but Thomas, how do you manage to break the world record for the longest soccer football throw-in? You managed to throw the ball 51 meters. So talk us through kind of lead up. So 3 years of training, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, it was back in 2008. At that time, I've been a throwing coach for 4 years. And I thought, hey, if I'm the only throwing coach in the world, why not have the longest throwing? So at that time, I could throw approximately 42 meters. And that's really far with a normal run-in, because if you're throwing mid-30s, that's really world-class. That's like the first post in the air. But the world record was 48.17 set by an American called Mike Lochner in 1998. So I couldn't beat it with a normal run-in, because I was pretty good technique, because I was a coach myself, but I was also really strong. because of my physical background, bobsleighing athletics. So I had to try to beat the world record in another way. So one day I saw flip throwing in television, taking a run in, jump down on the ball, make a flip, land, and then throw the ball. And I thought, hey, it was pretty cool. How hard can it be? So I went down to my local stadium and thought, hey, I just tried to do this. And then I just landed flat on my back. So it was pretty
wow.
I thought. So, the reason why it was hard for me was I was a non-gymnast. I've never been doing any flips and so in my whole life. But I used approximately 6 months together with 3 different gymnast coaches, and the last gymnast coach was the national coach from Denmark. So that's also one of the piece of advice I give: get help from anyone you know can make it better. So it meant that in August 2008, I had the chance to make a world record attempt in the match Denmark-Spain at the National Stadium in Denmark, full stadium. I threw approximately 44 meters, so I didn't beat the world record. So I had an attempt more in 2009 in a match between Hertha Berlin and Wolfsburg in the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, 40,000 spectators. I didn't beat it there either because it was totally raining. And I had to take a run in on the athletics track outside the football pitch, so really hard. But I was throwing 46, 47 meters in training, so almost had the world record of 48.17. But then in 2009, there was an English guy called Danny Brooks who beat the world record just in front of me with a throw of 49.78, and I was really frustrated because, I had the world record. And I knew I had to beat it one way, so I had to get some kind of help. So first of all, I thought about making a world record attempt at the Danish West Coast where there's like storming every day. But I thought, hey, it wasn't good. Then I thought, hey, what is my biggest challenge? And it was to hold on to the ball, because everybody know if you're exercising or even sitting in a warm room, you're often sweating in your palms. So I thought, hey, what is the best way to hold on to the ball? And then one day when my Friday evening, my kids always sing like a Disney show for kids. At least they did at that time, and now they're a bit older. And every time they got a little bit of candy. And then one day I was sitting and seeing this Disney show together with my daughter, and then suddenly I touched her hands. I don't know why, and they were a little bit sticky. So then I got an idea. Couldn't we test what kind of sticky stuff was best for flip throwing? So I contacted the Danish national TV, DR1, that's like BBC in England. And I asked them, couldn't we test what kind of sticky stuff is best when you want to do a flip throwing? So I got into a children's program on national TV called the Summer Summarum. And we together with the kids, I put licorice, sweets, and prunes on 3 different footballs, a standing throw-in with each ball, and then a flip throw-in with the winner. And the winner was licorice. So since then, I've been using licorice for my world record attempts. And it meant that, first of all, I could hold on the ball, but also when it came around in the flip, I could let go on the ball again because it was only like sticking in a moderate way. So it made me really secure, and it meant that in April 2010, I threw 47.00 official record attempt. Then in May 2010, I was throwing 48.60 meters. It was over the old world record, but just shy of the new world record. And then in June 2010, I was so lucky or so good to beat the official Guinness World Record with a throw of 51.33 meters. And you can see that on my YouTube channel. And of course, it's been fantastic for me to beat the world record, because one thing is that it was a personal achievement. I was really proud of being the world best, but also because I'm the only throwing coach in the world, and also to be the one who had the.
You got to lead the way, Thomas, man. I mean, if you're not getting close to that record, man, you know what I mean. Being the best throwing coach in the world, you know what I mean. It's like, gotta change it. But so I suppose in a way, being proud of the fact that you're now in the history books for that. That's a great accomplishment. you know, in the area of expertise that you've really dedicated a significant time to. But it's also the other things that have helped you along the way. I think that's the thing that impresses me is the journey from bobsleighing to running to, and how you've been able to apply yourself just in sport in general, and what sport, and learning from kids as well. And it shows to me that you seem like you're a good student. When you look at things, you've got a very open mind. You come across a very open-minded type of person, which I think. Do you think open-mindedness really does lead to, if you're going to be successful at something or not? What would your thoughts be on that?
Yeah, you can have many different perspectives to being successful, because I sometimes also meet people who are not so open-minded, but they're really structured in everything they do. So they put things in systems and suddenly they do something great. But, you know, we have to find a way to success and achievement from many different angles, and one of the angles that many people can go through is like the creative way, the way that where you're using really much fantasy and a lot of different ideas. And so I'm like the innovative guy. If I was hired by a company, I could pretty much innovate their company too and help them there. That's also what I'm doing with my talk. So I think that's the way for many people. I think one of the challenges also in our school system is that I was like that dipping into that a little bit early here, but I think the school system is a lot set up by kids have to read in a book, then they have to remember what they read, and then they have to tell the teacher, what did you read in the book? And of course it's good. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it at all, but you know, the school system is not so good for creative kids. And so we can do that.
I would agree with that 100% wholehearted. Because you know what's interesting? I had this conversation with somebody recently. I believe the school system is broken around the world, because I believe, like you were saying, I believe creative minds are not embraced. If you're not structured and you don't do things a certain way, you're not allowed to. I know, like, I remember when I was sending my son to a nursery school, and because we were thinking about sending him to a Montessori, but Montessori is too structured. It's you have to be a certain way, and it almost is preparing you to go into a structured environment from kindergarten to primary school. So, and that's one of the things I've definitely noticed is that creative children are obviously not embraced. You know, in terms of if they're dreaming about doing something, it's like, no, that's not really what we do here. So, but I also believe the educational system is tailor-made for socialists. I don't believe capitalists would never create a schools that wasn't about being creative and building something, and where you're saying to people it's okay to fail. Would you agree with that? Would you agree that it's, you know what I mean, that it's okay to fail for creative people, that they should be allowed to fail, that it's okay to fail?
Yeah, I'll say that we have to, again, like, it should be okay to fail. It should also be like, schools shouldn't be about giving the right answers. It should be about giving good answers. And what is good answers? Yes, of course, good answers could be the right answer. If I had to read like 20 pages about, let's just say, building a home or building a house, I could probably only remember 1, 2, or 3 things from these 20 pages, but you could be sure that I had 10 ideas how to develop things, how to do things, how people could live in them. What can we develop? So, So I think it all comes down to, of course, the governments and so who decides how should our schools be. Then it comes down to the education of the teachers. And then it comes down to the kids in the school, because we can't expect that the kids and the youth, young people and people who are being educated, they should change it. So I think it should be a more open-minded school. So because we of course there are some things you have to learn. Let's just say if you want to be a doctor, if you have to if you have to give some people an operation, of course you have to remember some things. Don't forget the scissor inside the stomach of a patient and so on. And how to, of course, there are some things you have to be able to do some work. But again, if you're looking back at I don't know how many years you've been going to school, but I've been educated for, I think, 17 or 18 years, all in all. I think if I was sitting down, used now to think, what did you learn? I could only perhaps remember, I don't know, 5 or 10 things from all these years. So for me, of course, to learn some things, but it's more about what kind of personality do you develop? Is it a personality who can remember everything they've been reading, or is it a personality who are really good at cooperating, really good at getting ideas, really good at finding solutions, really good at things like that. So I think it's much more important. But if you want to have that, you have to make a change in society. So yeah. And it starts
because you know what's actually interesting, and we'll obviously get to that shortly. But when you look at kind of even what you're saying, a societal problem. I know obviously I was speaking to you about Stevie Nicol. He works on ESPN FC, and he basically was very critical. So when you were talking about people that are narrow-minded, because I thought when I first heard him speak about it, and then I kind of looked up, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know. There seems to be a narrow-mindedness there, and I'm thinking to myself, but you don't know. Why? To me, it was very ignorant. That's just the view I took. I thought, well, if you look at how football is innovating, football is about innovation. It's not about standing still. It's like education. When you go to learn something, you don't want to stay in that one place. You want to grow, you want to learn something, and then you want to go on to something else, which is, perfectly understandable, right? Why do you think he would be quite kind of, why do they need a throw-in coach? What does that have to do with anything? What does that communicate to you if somebody's got that type of an opinion?
I'll say if the opinion was put in the way like Steve Nicol does, it doesn't mean so much to me. Actually, it was a really good advertise for me. Like you saw my YouTube, he mentioned me several times, not in a positive way. So I actually, I earned a lot of money on him saying that. But all in all, I'll just say that, first of all, I have nothing against Steve Nicol, and I'm sure if I met him, I think he would be a great guy and, everything. But what the challenge was with these comments, you can still find them on ESPN FC YouTube channel. And so the challenge was, first of all, I don't think he questioned me because he had some knowledge around throw-ins and the things I did. So I think, first of all, he lacked knowledge around what he was talking about. So
absolutely.
I prefer that he instead said, okay, I don't know so much about this guy. What is throwing coaching? We didn't have it at our time. It sounds crazy. And it was also okay that he laughed, but I would wish that he'd been a little bit more curious there instead of just for me, it was more like making fun of me. Like to get some euros. Instead of, I prefer that, because one thing is that you don't have knowledge around what you're talking about, and that's okay because we can't have knowledge around everything. But if I was Steve Nicol, first I would have thought, okay, now Jurgen Klopp has hired this guy. 3
exactly.
3 seasons. They've improved their throw-ins. Been going from number 18 to number 1 in the Premier League on throw-ins under pressure. They scored 14 goals after throw-in situation, and also see why are throw-ins important.
Thomas, I have a question just on that. So the 14 goals that Liverpool scored, right? How many? I'm trying to think. How many goals did they score that season? In total?
Oh, I haven't really counted that, but no matter what,
14's a lot though.
Yeah,
that's a lot of goals.
And also,
that's
even though we hadn't scored any goal at all, you can say that even if you keep possession,
Right.
Most teams are possessing under 50% of the occasions when have a throw in under pressure. Every time you lose the ball, you'll often be caught out of balance. So even though we hadn't scored anyone at all, it gives you more control. It prevents the opponents from scoring more goals against you. But all the numbers said, okay, it's a big success, and so I didn't really understand why he didn't think, okay. Klopp hired him for 3 seasons. Other big coaches, is he just going there for fun or what? Is he thinking that? So,
right.
So I don't. So for me, it's about being open-minded. And I'll also say,
absolutely.
For me, I don't have anything against Steve Nicol now because, you could perhaps also go 20 years back with me and I did something that wasn't a bit foolish or should have done that. And if people confront me, also try to say, hey, what did I learn about that? And maybe someday Steve Nicol will say, okay, I think it was pretty good decision to hire that throwing coach. And, if he says that, it's okay for me. And if he doesn't, it's also okay. But just try to be open-minded, because if you're narrow-minded, it stops you from getting information and knowledge. So be open-minded who you are.